Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Twin City Trio podcast here on YouTube. My name is Cale Fleming. Alongside me, as always, my two hosts, Gavin Campbell and Tyson Snyder. Tyson, what's going on today?
Tired, but I'm here.
That's what I like to hear. Gav, what's up, man?
Hey, man, what's up, brother?
On today's rundown, we have the baseball topic to cover. A lot of it's going on this week. Free agency just opened up, or is about to open up tomorrow. The Boston Red Sox, 2018 World Series champions. Congrats to them. We're going to talk about them a little bit. Moving on down the line, we're going to talk about Illinois football. I've got a few takes on them as well. Gav probably does also. We're going to move into the Illinois high school football playoffs as well. Then we're going to move into the NFL, sticking with football. We also have the NBA to talk about. Lots of stuff going on in Cleveland with the NFL and the NBA. Cleveland sports is kind of just a nightmare right now. And then to wrap it up this afternoon, we have the NHL, where I have a few takes on the struggling Los Angeles Kings. But first, we're going to talk about the 2018 World Series here real quick. Guys, you guys called it. Gentleman's sweep, 4-1. Boston ended up taking it home in L.A. What is it, the third time in 3 years that there's been a series-clinching win and on the L.A. Dodgers field, and it has not been the L.A. Dodgers. So if you're a Cubs fan, feels good, man. That's all I got to say. What do you guys think about the World Series?
Well, my first take would be congratulations to me and Tyson. First of all, pat on the back. We called that one. I know, Cale, you really wanted the sweep, but I believe it was Game 3. It appeared to be just a little too much for Boston to take. They had to drop one. But no, I needed a shout-out to Chris Sale. I feel like he really stepped up this World Series. I know you feel a little differently, but I thought he played really well. And shout-out to the I forget what the World Series MVP, whatever.
Steve Pearce.
Yeah, that trophy, Pearce. But, man, what heck of a series for that guy. I only watched 3, 4, and 5. I didn't watch the first 2 games. But I tell you what, from what I did see from him, I don't see how you give the trophy to anyone else.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that. The reason why he won the MVP, obviously, was for his 2 multi-home run games. He wasn't out there just hitting solo shots. He was hitting 2, 3-run bombs. I'm going to disagree with you on the fact, though, that, yes, it was an easy win for this title this year. But they also had some competition in David Price. David Price, this World Series and this playoffs, has completely turned around from what he was 2 or 3 seasons ago. Going into this playoffs and this World Series, he was 0-9. No wins, 9 games, 0 losses. This postseason, 9-0. So I would be hesitant as well to say Steve Pearce. Yes, congratulations to winning it, but David Price could have also been in contention for me because his ERA in the World Series, I don't know if you guys saw this or not, was a 1.3 against this hot bat LA Dodgers team. So for me, honestly, that could have been an MVP series or MVP caliber position as well. Tyson, what's your take on the World Series?
They are who we thought they were. It went exactly as planned. Boston 1-5, like Gavin and I predicted. You were pretty close with the sweep, but Boston looked too good, and it just looked like LA didn't have it. So I don't know. There's not really much I can say on it. It went exactly how we expected. Boston wins in 5. It's pretty easy. Gentleman's sweep. Not much competition. Kershaw looked bad in a half. Machado struck out 4 times in the final game. There just wasn't a whole lot going on the LA side, and that's good to see for us. Bad for baseball everywhere. No one likes seeing Boston win, but it's better than seeing the Dodgers win.
So I'm glad you mentioned Clayton Kershaw because I wanted to talk about him. He is now, in my opinion, the worst postseason pitcher of all time. It don't matter how many games you can win or whatever to get to the World Series or get there. If you can't close the deal in the postseason like he has not been able to do in the last 4 years, then to me, you're not the best pitcher in baseball. And honestly, the best pitcher in baseball, in my opinion, right now, does not have or is not on a World Series team, and that'd be Max Scherzer in the National League. You could also give that to Chris Sale. That guy is dominant no matter where he goes. You also got Justin Verlander, i.e., once again, another World Series ring. But with Clayton Kershaw, he's got 8 years in the league, 15 series, playoff series as a whole. He's 9-10. So his win-loss percentage is a .474. That's unreal for a guy of Clayton Kershaw's standards. But the thing that gets me is his 4.32 ERA. That's just absolutely absurd for a guy of Clayton Kershaw's stature to have an ERA of 4.32 in the postseason.
Well, I was going to say, you said he had 9 wins still. I was going to ask, but I doubt it's on your stat listing. I bet probably at least half of those wins where his team put up at least 5-6 runs for him. That's the only way he came out with wins during those games, if I had to guess.
And as Cubs fans, we've seen it. That's the only way he does win. You're right. At
least in the postseason.
The postseason. Regular season, Clayton Kershaw, outstanding. Postseason, Kershaw, I just don't understand what happened. He just falls apart and loses everything. Gav, what I'm going to talk about here, why I think the problem is with Clayton Kershaw is that he has completely lost all of his gas on his fastball. He was on average this season, he was throwing about 90, 91. Last 4 or 5 seasons, he was throwing 94, 95 to 97. Unlike Johnny Lester, they're right around the same age, right around the same years of service in the MLB. He's just lost it. But he still has that nasty 12-6 curveball. So, in my opinion, I don't know about what you think, but in my opinion, Clayton Kershaw just needs to become a straight specialty pitcher with that nasty curveball and that wicked slider he has.
I'd probably agree with you on that. One thing I would add to it is, like you said, he's still got the skill set to be serviceable in the MLB. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But to claim that he is the best pitcher because we know that he's full of himself, and he has been
since he's been in the league.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, he probably does need to come off his high horse a little bit, but there's no reason that he still shouldn't be able to keep his job. Just maybe be a little bit more humble moving forward.
I'm glad you mentioned keeping his job. There's something I want to talk about, too, real quick to close out the Kershaw debate. He needs to opt out of his contract in L.A. He needs to get out of L.A. He needs to get in a new uniform somewhere, something he can try to leave this postseason struggles behind him. Like you said, I agree with you. He's still got it. He's still a good pitcher. He's not an ace anymore. He's a Jose Quintana to the Chicago Cubs. You know, he's just not ace material anymore. But he needs to opt out of that contract. He needs to get out of L.A. Tommy Lasorda's got to do something with Clayton Kershaw. And I feel like he's going to heavily advise Clayton Kershaw this offseason to just opt out of his contract.
And sticking with pitchers real quick, one thing I want to mention is before we got into the Kershaw situation, mentioned Chris Sale. The Red Sox did pick up his option for 2019, that $13.5 million contract. So he's going to be back, and this team more or less should be looking for another World Series appearance and possibly a repeat.
Also, when it comes to pitchers, the St. Louis Cardinals and Adam Wainwright, they just finalized their bonus-laden 1-year, $2 million deal. So he's going to end up with another year in St. Louis. I feel like it's going to be a farewell tour because he's been in the league since all three of us have been kids. I love watching Wainwright pitch. Just wished I could watch him pitch in a Chicago uniform and not a St. Louis uniform. Moving off of that, we're going to get into some more topics here. Manny Machado's not going to be able to stay in L.A. Corey Seager's going to come back next season. There's a lot of teams that are going to be interested in Machado. Rumored it could be the Chicago Cubs. With the shortstop situation with Addison Russell, I could see it. Because for the Cubs standpoint, I don't think they're going to re-sign Daniel Murphy. I don't think Addison Russell's going to go after his 40-game suspension. He's not going to be on the roster anymore. So we could give up some guys for Manny Machado, but at the same time, I don't want to give up too many guys for the player we're about to talk about next. Tyson, what do you think about that?
Yeah, agreed. Manny Machado is not worth the. We saw how much LA gave up for him. Now imagine having to pay him what all those guys were worth. I just don't think he's worth our bang for the buck at this moment when we've got opportunities to get Bryce Harper. I know you said we'll lead up to him, but we'll get back to it. But I would much rather see Bryce Harper than Manny Machado, especially with the season Manny Machado had after getting traded to the National League. It wasn't great. The Dodgers were not great. His playoffs were not great, and he struck out, like I said earlier. I think he struck out. It was either 3 or 4 times in the final game alone. So he hasn't looked great, but at the shortstop position, I don't think we've got an issue right now. We've still got Javi to play short. We've still got a couple second basemen that we can kind of filter through. So I don't see an issue at the middle infielder position right now. Yeah, it'd be great to have Machado and Bryce Harper come, but it's just not feasible to sign both of those players and have to pay KB and Rizzo and Javi Baez here in the next upcoming couple of years.
With the addition to Seager coming back off Tommy John, Gavin, there's just no need for Machado to stay in L.A. anymore.
No, there's not, but I think there's one place that I don't think should be interested in signing him, and that is the Chicago Cubs. I don't think that the Cubs need this kind of antics after what we've seen in the playoffs. Machado is expressing himself in a way that not a lot of us paid attention to, and if he was this way in Baltimore, surely no one was paying attention to it with how bad their team was performing. I think this guy has some issues that need to be addressed if he's going to sign with any team. But one team that was very interested in him and Vegas says has the best odds to sign him is the Phillies.
Yep.
And I think that would be a very interesting fit, with Philadelphia also having interest in Bryce Harper.
Manny Machado, honestly, is one of the better shortstops in the league. You can't deny that. As you had stated, though, earlier, he is a dirty player, and he has been since he's been in the league. Nobody's going to deny that fact. Well, let's move off of Machado. Let's talk about the man of the hour, Tyson's old sexy hair, Bryce Harper. He's weighing his options. Honestly,
as he should.
He should, because he is a top-tier player in this league that can absolutely smoke the ball. Me and Tyson want to see him in Chicago. Other people want to see him wherever the hell they're fans of. Cardinals fans want to see him in St. Louis. Gavin, you wouldn't mind seeing him in a Blue Jays jersey, even though he's going to stay in the National League. But the Yankees, though, there's been rumors going around that the Yankees have kind of put feelers out there for Bryce Harper, and they have came out and stated that it would not be a good fit in the New York Yankees clubhouse, and I agree with that. They have what they're doing right now with Giancarlo and Aaron Judge and the Bronx Bombers with Gleyber Torres, Didi Gregorius. Bryce Harper just wouldn't be a big fit or good fit there, especially with the addition of Andrew McCutchen right before the deadline. What I do see it happening is the Cubs are favored in Vegas to get him this offseason with Chris Bryant, who they played together in high school. So Bryce Harper, that's just a situation we're going to have to watch all winter and see what happens.
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. And it just crossed my mind that if you add Bryce Harper to that roster, you have him and Chris Bryant, two sexy-haired gentlemen that can both go out there in Wrigley Field. I would really like to see it. Like you said, Vegas is favored to get him. I know it's a very, very, very far-fetched idea. I would like to see him in Toronto because we need all the help we can get, but that's something I can dream about and sleep on tonight. But, yeah, Bryce Harper, heck of a player. What he was able to do with a Washington squad that was really, really suffering from injuries this year was still really impressive, and I would love, love, love to see him at Wrigley Field.
It definitely wasn't his best season, but yeah, like you said, still impressive, still a great season for a young cat. Putting him back together with Chris Bryant, they've been playing together since Little Leagues, is insane. Those two go back way, way back. Great companionship there. They've just got great chemistry already. We've seen that him and Chris Bryant and their wives, they get together all the time. They go out and play games and stuff. So putting that together in the locker room can't be a bad thing in any way you look at it. But it would be great to see this kid in a Cubs uniform. There's no doubt about that. Like you said, Cale, every team wants him in their uniform.
Well, and one more thing I'd want to add is how much of a factor is Chris Bryant going to play in the recruiting process of Harper?
Bryant's going to play the biggest factor in the recruiting process. Not only Theo Epstein has one of the best baseball mind in the MLB, in my opinion. That could be a very good debate for people that don't like Theo. You got to look at what he did in Boston. Theo Epstein built this Boston franchise. He came to Chicago in 2004 and built us. So that being said, Theo Epstein is going to be a front runner. The Chicago Cubs are one of the most wealthiest organizations in the MLB as well, so we have the money. We have the money that he wants. We have the money to keep these guys around. Although we are going to have to unload some talent. I understand that. That's just what good teams do. They unload talent. But with that being said, with Bryant, he's going to be a big factor in the recruitment process for Harper. But yeah, I just want to say again, congratulations to the Boston Red Sox. 4 World Series in 15 years. That's unreal. It's their 11th in last 17. They are the baseball team of the 2000s. So that being said, congrats to the World Series champion Boston Red Sox.
Yeah, and I'm not looking forward to playing them for the years to come either.
They're going to be good for a while.
That division's tough.
So let's move out of baseball. Let's get into football. Biggest sport going on right now. Let's talk about the Illini.
Do we really want to?
Let's keep it short and sweet here today. We've lost big. What was it, 66 to 20?
63 to 33.
63 to 33. All right, so we did put up 33. Our defense is terrible. Bad news. We have our defensive coordinator, Hardy Nickerson, has resigned due to health issues. Whether it's health issues or not, if it is, I wish him well. Hope he recovers well. But I feel like it had to happen. Illinois' defense has been abysmal the last 2 years. And Illinois' defense is why we can't win games.
Absolutely. We saw in this game another 30-point performance. I believe this is the third one of the season. So, I mean, it's not like we can't put up points on the board. MJ Rivers struggled, and surprisingly, A.J. Bush came in and threw the football. How about that?
And he threw it well.
Yeah, something that I know I didn't expect. I'm not sure if you guys expected him to be able to come in and do that. We know he's good with his legs, but never thought in my wildest dreams Bush would come in and actually throw the football down the field. Lovie Smith give him some opportunities to go deep, and we saw him go deep more than a handful of times against Maryland. But the thing I want to highlight the most is the thing I've been preaching, Tyson's been preaching, Cale's been preaching. Our running backs, and especially Reggie Corbin, are phenomenal. And if we would just figure out a way to stop teams from putting up 40, 50, 60 points, we might be able to be in one of these in order to win a football game. I mean, 3 wins is 3 wins, but when you're in the Big Ten Conference, that's what you want to see is some W's on the board. And with the season coming to an end here soon, in the next 4 weeks, we need to start seeing that. Reggie Corbin, 20 carries on 160 yards. I mean, this kid's incredible. I need to see the ball in his hands that many times every single game.
Absolutely. As Tyson points out with the Dallas Cowboys and Ezekiel Elliott, you put the ball in Zeke's hands 20 times, you're going to win football games. You do the same thing with Corbin here at Illinois, we're going to win some football games if we can get our defense to get a stop every now and then.
Yeah, and that's the key. Every now and then, that defense has to get a stop. Letting up 63 points, it's not feasible to win any game. That's against Maryland, who was 4-3. Same against Penn State, who was undefeated at the time. They let up 49 in the other 2 games the last 2 weeks. The defense has just looked abysmal, and somehow it seems that the Illini are getting worse with each week. Usually it's supposed to be backwards. You're supposed to get progressively better, or at least more competitive, and they're doing the opposite. They're getting less competitive and worse. The defense is collapsing. The offense is stagnating. Surprisingly, like Gavin said, A.J. Bush came in and provided a little spark, and they caught up a little bit, which is hard to say because they still lost by 30. But they caught up a little bit when A.J. Bush came in. I still don't give him the nod. I still think M.J. Rivers is the way. But he did have a good back end of that game. Reggie Corbin, again, looked phenomenal. That's all there is. That's the one bright thing is Reggie Corbin still looks great.
We have Minnesota Saturday at 2:30 here at home, here in Champaign Memorial Stadium.
We should be able to win that game.
We're going to talk about it Friday. We need to be able to win, but we're going to talk about that Friday. The last thing I want to talk about covering Illinois football is my take on Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith this year has let me down. Lovie Smith has also let me down in the past being a Bears fan. I understand that, but at the same time, Lovie Smith is a great coach. It's just hard to watch this team. I mean, you cannot deny that fact. As an Illini football fan, it is hard to watch. I can't even watch a full game anymore. That being said, this season, he's got the rest of this year. 2019, he's got these top-tier recruits that he needs. My opinion, Lovie Smith has till the end of the 2019 season to somewhat make improvements on this team before Josh Whitman says, okay, your time's up, you got to go. I understand it takes 3 to 5 years to turn a football program around. It's not like basketball where you can get 2 guys out of the 5-man squad on a court to turn a program around. It takes more than 2 guys on a football field. I understand that. But 2019, at the end of next year, that'll be his 4th season, correct? 3rd season?
It'd be his 4th. This is his 3rd now.
Okay, so it'll be his 4th season. He's had 4 years, and we are regressing from what we were before Lovie Smith took over.
If he produces anything but a winning or tied record in his 4th year, there's no reason why he shouldn't get the boot. I mean, 4 losing seasons in a row, and you're an NFL head coach, a decorated NFL head coach, has been to the Super Bowl, has been to the championship game multiple times in the NFC, no less, the NFC being the superior conference even back then. So I understand college football, the NCAA is not professional, but there's no reason you shouldn't be able to make the transition. We see coaches do it all the time with Nick Saban and Jim Harbaugh.
Yep. Real quick on the line, you got something to add?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think you're absolutely right. It's clutch or kick next season. I think if he doesn't go 7-5, I think he gets the boot. I think he's got to go above 500 to stay.
Josh Whitman's got a lot of pressure on himself right now, and Josh Whitman, I have full faith, can turn this program around. He's just got to find the right people to do so. Speaking of turning programs around, we have 4 days from today. Today's October 30th. Illini basketball, November 2nd, tipping off against the Illinois Wesleyan here at the State Farm Center, 7 o'clock. So at least we got some Illini basketball coming up here. Maybe that will help us out a little bit. So give us something to talk about. It's a little positive.
Exhibition. Let's be
it's
clear.
just
Exhibition game.
game.
Season doesn't start till next week, but there is college basketball back in Champaign-Urbana.
I wouldn't get too excited. They lost to EIU in an exhibition last year.
We're not going to talk about that. We're just going to leave that where it's at. I will say this. Don't really start following Illini basketball until about bragging rights time. That's when it really fully kicks off. But we do have the Maui tournament. But let's get on to some Illinois football. Let's get on to some Illinois high school football where Tyson's going to run us through a preview or a post-game preview of what happened last week.
Yeah, so we're just going to run through this real quick. Our first game, we had Argenta versus Sarah Gordo. We all went with Argenta. Pretty easy win, 50-10. Smoked them. The next game up in 2A, we had Oakwood versus Pana. Cale and I took the underdog in Oakwood in that one. And it came down to the wire, but Pana came out with a win. So Gavin's team took it 28-21. 3A, again, Cale and I went with the underdog, Wilmington versus Monmouth. And once again, Gavin's team squeaked out another close one, 14-10 over Wilmington.
That's tight.
That's a tight game with two good teams. 4A, PC versus Murfreesboro. We all went with Murfreesboro, the favorite here. We all thought PC just was out of gas a little bit. Murfreesboro did take this one at home, 22-20. So another close one. We did a pretty good job on the picks this week with the games. They all came out relatively close.
Playoff football.
Yes, sir. We'll talk about that in a second. Playoff football. But 5A, we had Champaign Central against Carbondale. Carbondale and again came out with a close one. We all picked Carbondale in this matchup.
Hey, props to Central real quick.
31-28.
Heck of a season.
Yeah. Well, they gave them everything that it was worth, going down to Carbondale and taking it to them. Only losing by a field goal. That's really good for a team that was supposed to be subpar. Moving on to 6A, we had Peoria Notre Dame against Normal West. We all went with Normal West in this one. They won it pretty easily, 34-21. This is the one we all tripped up on a little bit here. St. Charles North, the 22 seed against the number 11 seed Normal Community. St. Charles North pulling out the win over Community, 44-29.
Wow.
I'd be lying if I said this game did not piss me off. I mean, it really did. I mean, just seeing the final score, let alone going to the box score, watching some of the highlights. I mean, this game really got under my skin.
You guys played Normal Community, right?
Yeah, every year.
So give me a rundown of who you guys play.
All the Bloomington teams. So you got Normal Community, Normal West, Bloomington, obviously Central, Centennial, Danville, and then back when I played, we still played Mattoon, and I believe Manual came in the last year that I was there. So that's just a handful of teams.
I want to run through something real quick. St. Charles North, I believe, is on the western side of Chicago, even though it says north. But I think it's on the western side of Chicago.
Well, yeah.
So that being said, they probably play a lot better competition than Normal Community. I just want to throw that out.
Right. I'm surprised Normal Community got thrown into the 7A bracket. They're usually 6.
That's what I don't understand there.
That's all I had on
it.
I'm just surprised they're in the 7. Usually they're in the 6A bracket.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, but moving on, our final game was the 31 seed against the number 2 seed in 8A. Lincoln Way East against St. Charles East. Lincoln Way East, the 2 seed, which we all picked, came out on top of this one, 49-0.
That's a murder.
Yeah. So just a quick rundown in all the brackets. 1 through 8A. 1A, there was 5 upsets total. 2A, there was 5 upsets. 3A, there was 6 upsets.
Wow.
So that division with PBL and whoever we had at our 3A game.
Monticello.
Wilmington and Monmouth. So there was a lot of upsets in that bracket. Moving on, 4 seed, there was only 3. 5 seed, there was 3 upsets. But one of those upsets was a 16 seed over a 1 seed.
Whoa.
Wow.
The only one in the playoffs this year. The only one in the last couple of years, I believe. 6 seed, 2 upsets. One of those being Bloomington. 7 seed, there was 3 upsets, and 8 seed, there was also 6 upsets, which a couple of those we had predicted with Wilmette coming out on top of Manuka and things like that.
The Purple Raiders won their first round matchup, or no?
Bloomington
They
lost.
Okay.
This kind of hurts because Griffin Moore, future Illini, coming out of Bloomington. Good news is he'll be here healthy, and he didn't have to prolong his season much longer.
Yeah, well,
but
bad
although
news
wish I could have watched him in the playoffs.
He's out of the state playoffs.
Yep, that hurts. You got anything else for us?
Nope, that was it. I'll come with a lot more statistics on Friday.
No,
You're gonna make
for our next round of picks.
Yeah, second round picks. That should be good. Well, I'm hoping you throw PBL in there so we can talk about that because
sure.
Their first round game I thought was really impressive when I went back and looked at the statistics. 33 points, holding them to under 10. I believe they scored 6.
Yep.
So yeah, really impressive. I know they got to take on Carlton or forget the name of the school, but they're undefeated, 10-0. They took care of their first round.
Carlinville. Right. I kept saying Carrollton earlier. It's Carlinville.
Yeah, and
Carrollton's a little smaller.
10-0, and that team I believe took care of business. Was it 40? Was it about 43-6 or something like that?
47-8.
47-8.
East Alton.
There it is. Yeah, that's going to be a tough matchup, but I think it'll be closer than what some people anticipate. I do.
Sticking with football here, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on to the NFL. So we talked high school, we talked college, and the NFL all in a little backwards order here.
Football!
All right, so we're sticking with football. Gavin, the Jets took on the Bears, and we needed a win. Coming against the Jets, we got the Bills next week. We'll talk about that a little more later. 24-10. Like I said, we needed it. Mitch looked good. He was 16 for 29 with 220 total yards, 2 tutters. He got sacked twice. But what impressed me is he had 6 more carries for 51 yards. Moving down the list, Gavin, Jordan Howard, 22 carries, 81 yards, 2 TDs. The thing that impressed me the most was that 70-yard pass, that breakout run by Tyreek Cohen. 1 catch, 70 yards, 1 touchdown. That being said, what'd you take away from the Bears and Jets on Sunday?
Well, without that catch, Mitch only threw for 150 yards. So, I mean, it really helped out his stat line, didn't it? No, I want to touch on something real quick before I get into my full analysis. We talked about it last Friday, is Mitchell Trubisky. We wanted him to carry the ball more. We said about 6 to 8 times a game and get about 40 or 50 yards. He did exactly that, 6 carries for 51.
Before we move on, I don't know if I want him to carry the ball that much because I don't know if I necessarily want to see him get licked.
Well, that's the thing is when he played at North Carolina, let's not forget, Mitch is a big guy.
Yeah, he's a big dude and he can run. I know he can slide well, but sometimes he don't slide.
And I
just
love
takes
it.
the lick.
I love
That's
it.
because he's young and he thinks he's invincible still.
Exactly, and he'll, if he just goes watch clips of Cam Newton back in his early days in the league, he'll understand why Cam slides now. Even though he's 6'6", like 240 pounds, he's a big man. But yeah, I was really impressed with Mitchell. I want to talk about Jordan Howard as well. 22 carries. It's like Tyson said, if you give your star running back 20 carries, you see the Cowboys and Zeke. We talk about it every week, except their bye week, which is obviously last week. But
yep.
Jordan Howard, 22 carries, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns, finally came alive this season. I think this is the best he's looked because the Jets defense, let's not forget, is in the top half of the league. I believe they're top 10 in run defense as well. And Tariq Cohen, I would have liked to see him get a little more involved, although that catch was very nice. Didn't really get going on special teams, but you can't do it every week. And one last thing I want to touch on with Mitch. He tied Sid Luckman in that game Sunday for the most touchdowns by a Bears quarterback through 4 games with 13.
Hey.
That's probably the most impressive thing I've seen from a Bears quarterback since I've ever watched the Bears since the year 2000. So
I'm confused. How's it through 4 games?
It's through any 4 games of the season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's been, even though we've played 7, just any 4 games since week 4, he's thrown for 13 touchdowns. Which Sid Luckman did back in, I believe, 1956.
As you pointed out, that's something Mitch needed to do, something we all needed to see Mitch throw
more and more touchdowns. We've talked about that every week. He needs to throw at least 2 touchdowns every week to keep this team in the conversation, and that's what he's done since we started talking about it.
Absolutely.
He's been throwing 2 touchdowns. He's been throwing 6 touchdowns. He's been throwing 3 touchdowns.
Well, what's great is for the month
of
the month of October, he's thrown for over 3 touchdown passes in every single game this season on this month on average, which is really what you want to see. Like Tyson said, I just wanted to echo that. And one more thing, we talked about Khalil Mack last week. Didn't show up in this game because of his high ankle sprain.
Saddening.
And he needs to sit out next week as well. We saw the Bears take care of business here. Roquan Smith showed up and Danny Trevathan. That whole Bears defense, I was really impressed, and they need to bring it the same intensity that they had in this game next week in Buffalo.
You guys are okay with Max sitting out for a high ankle sprain?
Absolutely.
Because if you look at...
He's getting paid how many millions every year? To
90 million for 4 years? Or was it more than 100?
Yeah, it's
190?
I guess $130 million for 4 years, or 5 years extension.
Here's the thing, is that I'm okay with him sitting out for this 2-week stretch against the Jets and the Bills. I'm okay with that.
Have you had a high ankle sprain?
No.
I have, and they suck. If you're a big dude, they suck. I can tell you that.
Well, they don't go away either. They don't get better.
Okay.
it hurts for weeks upon months. High ankle sprains, they don't get better. So, personally, I have a problem with him sitting out with high ankle sprains. They tape that bitch up and get ready to go, man. You'd be surprised the amount of tape it takes to basically fix that problem. It's not very much. Tape it up tight and you're good to go. So, especially for how much they're paying him, how much they gave up for him. I don't know. I like to see guys on the field every week, especially when they're getting paid that much. Especially with an issue like a high ankle sprain, it's not going to get any better when he comes back in a couple weeks. Yes, it's a good thing for him to get some rest, but for an injury like that doesn't get better, I don't see the point of taking time when it's not really going to help in the long run.
It must not be as serious as they think it is, because you're right. If it was that bad, he would play through it. But if it's a minor injury that they can take care of in a couple weeks, where it's not as serious, the grade isn't as high, have him sit these couple weeks, because we saw him play in that Miami game. He did not look good at all. So if anything, I think take a week off. Hell, take 2 weeks off, because after the Bills, we have 3 division games in 4 weeks. And
we are now on top again.
And we need to be prepared, because we played Detroit twice in 3 weeks, and then we got to take on the Vikings, whose defense is back.
I do agree with Tyson, though, as a Bears fan. We paid him a lot of money, so yes, I do want to see him out there, but at the same time, when he's not out there, this Bears defense looks completely different. Now, they're still good, but they're not the same when he's not out on the field.
Right.
But that being said, since we paid him that much money, I don't want to see him sit out a whole year for playing against the New York Jets. Honestly, that's where I'm coming from.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
And see, one last thing I want to touch on with that is, well, not really, because you hit the nail on the head, but I'm just going to reiterate it, is when you do pay a guy that much money, you want him to be on the field more often than not. And as we saw with Roquan Smith, he's going to need some help out there, and that's why I think it's okay to sit him this week, because Nathan Peterman was named the starter for the Bills, because Derek Anderson is now in concussion protocol. So
and no Josh Allen still.
Yeah, he's still hurt, so they're going to have to bring in old third string pick Peterman. So I'm very okay with him sitting.
Joe Prince and Eddie Johnson get some stats this week.
Absolutely, I'm very okay with that. And Cooper, I believe, is still hurt as well. He's one of our backup corners, so our backup safeties, excuse me. But let's go ahead and move on. I know we got to talk about Tyson's matchup of the week with the New Orleans Saints and the Minnesota Vikings. The Saints taking home the win 30-20.
Well, yeah, it was a great game. Like we talked about on Friday, we all thought it would be close. It would be another shootout. There was just no miracle in Minneapolis this time. No miracle to be had. Stephon Diggs making a catch and racing up the sideline. But yeah, the Saints came out on top 30-20. I think we all picked the Saints. If I remember correctly, we thought they were going to come out with the win in this one. A little revenge for them it was a bogus play. Not bogus meaning bad or wrong or anything. It was just bogus at how it happened. It just kind of came out a little funny. No one expects that to happen. But the Saints getting a little revenge. Great game, start to finish. Drew Brees got like 7 points in fantasy. Good thing I didn't start him. But he had an incredible completion percentage, only missing like 5 passes, but he only threw for like 120 yards or something like that and a touchdown.
Yikes, that's not Drew Brees.
Yeah, his defense showed out. The rest of his team helped him out a lot. It's not like he needed the help. He played great. He just didn't have the stats to show for it. But the Saints together as a whole played really well this week.
I would really like to highlight Alvin Kamara in this game, especially against a Vikings defense, like I said, has been playing like their usual selves the past few weeks. I mean, that guy, if you want to say Todd Gurley's the best running back in the league, this guy's a close second. He's an absolute freak of nature.
I'm never talking about Todd Gurley on this podcast ever again.
and why would that be, Cale? Would you like to repeat of last week?
Just not talking about him anymore.
Fair enough.
Well, you guys got anything else?
No, that was it. I was just going to move on because I know we have 4 other topics to get to.
I want to talk about this guy real quick. We're going to run down through some news. We're just going to spitfire these real quick.
Absolutely.
But first off, I'm going to lead it off with this. The GOAT of all GOATs, Adam Vinatieri. Congrats to him. He's now the NFL points leader. He did it down in the black hole in Oakland. I love this guy. He's the most humble human being you could possibly sit next to and the most fiercest competitor according to Pat McAfee. Congrats to Adam Vinatieri, man. That dude's old, though.
He's literally been playing longer than we've been alive.
He got drafted, 3 or 4 years before we were born?
1995.
Yeah. So the year before I was born, he got drafted. So he's been in the league for 23 years.
That's outstanding.
Yeah, go Vinatieri. That's all I got to say.
I feel old, and he's been playing longer than me. I can't even imagine.
Last night at the Pacers game, Victor Oladipo signed him a jersey with another number 4. Coincidentally, they both wear 4. That's funny. He said that to the real GOAT in Indianapolis, so Oladipo recognizing him. Vinatieri came out and said that they could share the city together, though, so that's kind of cool.
That is cool, but I would like to remind everyone that Peyton does not beat the Bears in 2006 without Vinatieri, but that's a story for a different day.
Another reason why Adam Vinatieri is the GOAT. Moving on, we had a lot of news. The NFL trade deadline closed today at, 3 p.m. Central Time?
Tomorrow.
At 3 p.m. Central Time. Okay, so let's move it on here. The Browns, the Cleveland Browns, the dog pound, man, they're having a rough go these last couple weeks. They have just fired their head coach, Hugh Jackson, offensive coordinator, Todd Haley. Greg Williams will now replace at head coach, and some dude, I don't even know, I can't even remember his name, that's how much I know about him, is now their offensive coordinator. I believe he's the running backs coach. Tyson, what the heck is going on with the dog pound?
Well, they're seeing how things aren't working. They're tired of Hugh Jackson losing finally. After going 1-31 in his first 2 seasons. He finally got a couple wins this year, but it's still not working out. You've got the best rookie quarterback in the draft, and you're not making it work for him. I think they see that, and they decide that it's definitely time to make a switch. I didn't see Todd Haley getting fired, but I don't really understand. Todd Haley's got a run, as Gavin pointed out, of not really getting along with people, but he's still a great offensive mind. So him leaving as well, I thought came as a little bit of surprise. But the Browns, they've overhauled their team. They have a great team. Defense is outstanding. Their offense is getting there with the pieces that they've added this last offseason. But why isn't it working? They've got all the pieces. Now they just need someone to put those pieces together. And I think they finally realized that Hugh Jackson's not that guy, which they thought he was, but he's not. So it's time to move in a different direction and get some solidarity for Baker Mayfield.
Gab, before I get your take on this, I just want to let everybody know, through 40 games at Cleveland, with the Cleveland Browns, that's 3 years. Hugh Jackson was 3-36-1. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, no, and like Tyson said, and that's exactly the reason why he's gone. He can't win. He can't put it together. Like you said, and obviously it's an opinion, but I think we all agree that Baker Mayfield is the best rookie quarterback in this draft.
They're wasting his first year, too.
Absolutely. Not only did he not start him week 1, and that's no disrespect to Tyrod Taylor. He's a very serviceable starting quarterback in the league. But it was Baker's time. He should have handed him the keys to begin with, gave him the confidence to go out there and do what Baker does, which is make things happen. Man, only 2 wins, and this is a team that we thought could win 6 or 7, maybe even 8 games this year. And they still very well could get to the 7-win mark. It's just going to be very difficult. They've already played the Steelers twice, and they went and beat Baltimore. So that's off the list, and they still have to play Cincinnati. So, man, just getting rid of Hugh Jackson, that was the best thing they could have done. Like Tyson said, some people may be scratching their heads at the Todd Haley firing. For me, I'm not surprised, although I do have respect for him because he is a very good offensive coordinator. He's had a track record of knocking heads with the head coach.
He's a personality.
And usually quarterbacks. And I'm not sure how his relationship was with Baker Mayfield, but that might have had something to do with it because, the general manager and John Dorsey, he's really, really, really high on Baker. So if Todd was speaking wrong to him or treating him in a way that he didn't see fit, he was going to get the boot. And
Not
he did.
high enough to make him a week 1 starter.
Yeah, that's true.
High enough to put him at 3rd string week 1, but
That Cleveland team's got a lot they got to work on. Cleveland sports in general, we're going to get into that as well. Topic number 2, in other news this week, the Bucks are going to start Ryan Fitz-Stagnant again.
Oh, come on. Call him by his name.
And the Fitz-Stagnant.
Fitz magic.
So that being said, what's that mean for Jameis Winston? He had a rough week last week. Should the Bucks go ahead and just lay it all out on the table and trade him?
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, trade him. He's obviously not your starter for the future. I mean, how good is he? I mean, honestly, though, tell me if I'm wrong. I mean, he's had 3 years to figure it out. Old Crab Legs is still doing things off the field, on the field that unproductive. He's a distraction. This Bucks team is good enough. It has talent. It's good enough to be competitive, but they're not because they don't have a leader. And not only that, I don't think their head coach is very good, but that's a story for a different day. This is about Winston. I think they trade him, get what they can for him, and then try to get a quarterback in this upcoming draft because they're going to be terrible the rest of the year.
Jameis Winston, you got to remember, this cat is still younger than we are. And I'm not sticking up for him because I completely don't like anything he's doing off the field. But he's a young guy that's still trying to figure himself out. And you're going to tell me they keep Ryan Fitzpatrick over Jameis Winston?
Oh, no, trade him too.
Okay, I was going to say, okay. That's where I completely disagree.
No, they need an entire different quarterback roster. Get rid of all of them.
All right, deal.
What's wrong with my boy Fitzmagic?
Because Jameis Winston, getting rid of him makes no sense to me. You've got this guy still on a rookie contract. He'll be there for at least another 2 years. Might as well keep him because right now if you trade him, he's not worth a darn thing. Keep him on the roster. Let him try and do something before you completely abandon ship on him. He's a young guy. We've seen his potential. He won NCAA championships with Clemson. We've seen what he can do in the NFL when he's in. I think this guy's got unlimited potential. He just needs to be able to use it, and he needs to stay on the field and quit being a dummy. But, yeah, if you're going to get rid of him, don't keep Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Florida State.
Yeah, there's I don't know. I would agree. I think they need to draft another quarterback. Maybe that'll help him pull his head out of his hiney and stop getting on these off-the-field antics and whatnot. But don't trade him yet. Give him a chance. He's still young. Still got potential. But, yeah, if you're going to trade anyone, trade Fitzpatrick while he's hot. But keep Winston for at least another couple years.
Let me just say this. Let me just say this one thing. Let me give some statistics for why I want Winston gone. All right, since 2016, since his immaculate season in 2016, the past 2 years, touchdown to interception ratio, he's got 25 touchdowns and 22 interceptions. That's pretty average. All right. On top of that, his completion percentage is also 62%. That's below league average. And then let's also look at his yards per game. It's also under league average at 260. Is this really a guy that you want to bank on with all the off-the-field issues who's played 48 games total in the NFL? Is that a big enough sample size for you to give him the boot? I mean, I just want an honest opinion.
No, I don't think it's a large enough sample size to give him the boot, but we've seen what he can do, and I think his potential is what is keeping him there. I'm not saying he's been great by any means, but he had one great season, which he led a undernourished, bad Bucks team to a good season.
Well, let's not act like they were the worst thing in the world. Their defense was in the top half, and Mike Evans is a stud.
Right, but that was about all they had.
Doug Martin, he had a great season as well. He had a 1,000-yard season at the running back position. That's no easy feat in today's NFL.
Right, but his sample size with a lot of those statistics is enough to get rid of him. But we've seen how good he can be, and I think that's the reason why he's still there. And I think that's the reason why he'll continue to be there is because he can be good. I think a lot of what's plagued him is just the off-the-field issues. Going by those statistics, Dak is under those statistics in almost every category as well. But there's no chance that the Cowboys are going to get rid of Dak even in the next 3 years.
Dak also has a 13-3 season. Jameis Winston does not.
Right. But we've seen where that's gotten him since then.
Fair enough, but Jameis Winston hasn't won more than 10 games in one regular season.
Right. I'm not saying that Jameis Winston is great. I'm saying that he's on the roster and he'll continue to be on the roster for at least a couple years until his contract's up.
I see Jameis Winston as a younger version of Derek Carr right now. One great season,
but they're not
going to
get anything if they try and trade him.
But that's what really. That's all I'm trying to say is.
So give him a couple seasons to get back to at least some kind of looking like he's got talent, and then trade him, or then drop him off the roster, or give him a chance to train a younger quarterback.
All right, this would be my last question then. If you're Tampa Bay in this upcoming draft, if you have a top 4 pick, let's say, do you draft a quarterback?
I draft running back. Their running back position is abysmal. Their defense needs a lot of work. I think there's a lot of things that they can get besides quarterback, and we've seen the last couple of years how good the third round has been, not just for quarterbacks but for positions in general. So I don't see any reason to draft high on a quarterback, especially with a group of quarterbacks coming into the draft this year that is not very deep. There's no point in trading up to get a really good quarterback, and no point in wasting a high pick on a quarterback that's probably subpar to begin with.
Moving on, getting into some free agency. Golden Tate, Lions wide receiver, has now been traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm about to call them the Phillies.
The Feagles.
The Philadelphia Eagles for a third rounder. Golden Tate, the Detroit Lions, he's not a bad wide receiver, honestly.
Oh,
right?
former Pro Bowler.
Okay,
Yeah.
so he's a former pro. I don't know much about him because I do not care about the Detroit Lions whatsoever. The only thing it's going to do is just irritate Tyson more because it's giving another weapon to Carson Wentz and the Philadelphia Eagles. Being a Cowboys fan, you can't like the Eagles. God, I keep calling them the Phillies.
We stole Amari Cooper from them, so they had to go out and get the
Lesser of
downgraded version
Yeah.
of similar players, similar play style. Amari Cooper's just got a little bit more talent.
Well, you're not wrong. He's also bigger. He's stronger.
Right.
Golden Tate's he's a speedster. He's a slot receiver. Amari Cooper's a guy you can stick out one-on-one on the left side of the line and just say go deep. Alshon Jeffrey. Brandon Marshall got cut from Seattle today.
Okay, that's
so he's on the market as well for anyone that wants like a fourth string, fifth string receiver because he's not that guy anymore.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's all right. I think this is good for the Phillies. Wow, you got me saying it too.
I'm sorry.
The Eagles. This is good for the Eagles now because, Wentz has been struggling. I don't know what it is. I would think that they'd go out and get a running back with Ajayi going down, but I mean, I guess if you want to throw the ball more, go get you a guy that can run some reverses for you as well.
No one will ever understand the Eagles.
No, I also think we've seen Golden Tate throw the football a handful of times as well in Detroit, so I guess there's some trickery you can do with that. I'm not real big on it, but only giving up a third rounder, I think this is a pretty good trade for both teams.
Last guy I'm going to talk about that I got on the notes, I know there's a lot more, but we're running out of time here on this. So the last guy I'm going to talk about is Demaryius Thomas, was traded to the Houston Texans for a 7th rounder, or the Broncos, traded Demaryius Thomas and a 7th round pick to Houston for a 4th rounder. Just a little fun fact about this game, Demaryius Thomas's first game as a Texan will be, guess where? In Denver against the Broncos. That's kind of funny.
That's funny. That's
I bet he
great.
goes for 220 yards and 3 touchdowns.
That'd be
Not
fantastic.
only are they playing the Broncos, they're playing them in Denver too. That's hilarious to me.
Yeah, that's got to be interesting being a fan. How do you react when he scores a touchdown in your home end zone? You know, I don't think you can help
week
it.
after he gets traded.
What's awesome about this is they've still got Hopkins in Houston, who is clearly a number 1 receiver with the stickiest hands in the NFL. Absolute stud. And now you line up a 6'4", number 1 wide receiver on the other side of the line. It really opens up both of these guys. It's going to be insane for Houston, for the Texans coming up here in the next couple weeks.
Well, that and I think Deshaun Watson's a pretty good quarterback compared to Case Keenum especially. I think he's
compared
a lot
to
better.
Mitch Trubisky.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry, continuing on.
Yeah, Mitch is better than Deshaun Watson. Argument for a different day,
I
but
still want Watson.
Watson is he's really good, especially when you see who was throwing in the football in Denver and who's going to be throwing in the football in Houston. So,
Oh, it's a complete upgrade.
oh, absolutely, and that's no disrespect to Keenum because I think he's a really, really good quarterback. I just don't know if
He's struggling.
I don't know if he's a starter. He had one great season in Minnesota. That was a miracle in itself. No play on words there, but no, this is great for them. Houston, I think this elevates them into. Man, I don't know. They're going to be an interesting team to see in the playoffs because obviously they're going to make it now. But you don't want to see them,
especially in that abysmal AFC South.
Right? You don't want to see them in the first round. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Indy, Houston,
Jags,
Tennessee.
Oh God, the Jags need to figure out what they're doing too.
I did want to touch on Green Bay real quick. Ty Montgomery bringing that ball to the end zone against the Rams, losing him the game. They gave him the chop, traded him to the Ravens, which is really good for the Bears because Ty Montgomery is a great receiver. / running back, whatever they want to use him as that day. They also got rid of HaHa Clinton-Dix, one of their youngest, best talents on that defensive side of the ball.
And they traded him to Washington.
Right, basically the only defensive talent that they still had on that side of the ball. They traded him to Washington, so good for the Bears again, bad for the Cowboys, but that's all right.
Right. Great for the Bears because the the Lions and the Packers got worse. Bad for the Cowboys because the Redskins and the Eagles got better. So we'll have to look at that moving forward, but we'll go ahead and move on here. We got to talk about the NBA. I know, Cale, you were really surprised when this happened. I know we talked about it over the weekend. Tyronn Lue, the head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers, was fired after the first 6 games of the season and the Cavs going 0-6. Kevin Love missed those last 2 games and will be out moving forward. But what was your take on this, and where did this come from?
My take on this is these are the first 6 games he's coached in Cleveland. And he got canned in his first 6 games. That's just hilarious. Feel bad for Ty Lue. It just goes to show you how big of an asset LeBron was, and he did absolutely everything for each team he plays on. But to me, it's just absolutely hilarious that Ty Lue, in his first 6 games in Cleveland as a head coach, and I'm being
play on words, absolutely.
First 6 games as a head coach, he got canned. That's just hilarious.
They're the only defeated team in the NBA still. The only team without a win. That's behind the Kings. That's behind the Lakers, who are not doing well. That's behind the Bulls, who are 2-5.
And let's not forget OKC only has 1 win this year as well.
And the Pistons went undefeated forever.
Yeah, and so did the Raptors. I believe the
Milwaukee's still
Milwaukee
undefeated.
Bucks 7-0, the only undefeated team
Took
left.
down the Raptors.
Yeah,
Shout out Bledsoe.
I would also
right.
like to say that Kawhi Leonard did not play in that game, but
why not? Did his just rest?
It's back to back. He's coming off of that thigh injury from last year, so Coach Nurse doesn't want to play him on back to backs, and that's completely fine. I'm happy to have him in the North. That's all right with me. Another thing we need to talk about is, speaking of the Raptors, they're the second best team in the East behind Milwaukee. And the team that we thought would be on top at this point in the season, the Boston Celtics, they can't really find their groove. They can't find their rhythm right now. As Cale said, Gordon Hayward's learning how to walk again.
He is.
On that ankle. The stroke is still there, but he's being very tentative when moving around the court. And then their all-star Kyrie Irving, man, the struggles from the three-point line are real these first couple weeks, only shooting 24% this season so far.
That's not Kyrie, Kyrie does. And like I said on here, Kyrie can't buy a 3. He can't buy a bucket in general, let alone a 3. But I want to go back to Gordon Hayward. Believe it or not, I kind of like this Boston Celtics team. I'm just a basketball fan in general. Shout out Scary Terry, shout out Brown, shout out Tatum. Them guys are carrying this team. While they're 2 All-Stars, Gordon Hayward can't walk and Kyrie can't shoot. But Gordon Hayward, like you said, he still has his stroke. He's still sticking shots every now and then. He just doesn't look near as explosive as he did last year, and I know why. I get it. He turned his ankle 180 degrees. That's a big injury. But, man, them 2 guys got to figure it out if this team wants to perform.
Yeah, another guy that I want to touch on real quick that's really been the glue for this team since their 0-2 start, Al Horford. Big Al has really been a component of just being a really good teammate and being the rock for this team.
Marcus Smart, too.
Absolutely. And also, man, it's really everyone on the squad because
except the 2 guys that you would think.
Markieff Morris is with the Celtics. That guy, I tell you what, for being a journeyman and for being a role player, that guy can really stick some shots when you need him to.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched him. It'd be in the first, second, third, hell, even the fourth. And he'll get you a three-pointer. He'll get you a dunk. He'll get you a bank shot whenever you call his number. And I've been really impressed with him the past season and first 2 weeks of this one. But, Tyson, what do you think about the Celtics so far?
I don't really understand it. They've got all the pieces they had last year when they went to a final top 2 finish in the East. I don't really understand what's going on besides Kyrie struggling. But we've seen that picked up with Jason Tatum going nuts. He's played incredibly well in the first several games. I just don't really know what to think of it right now. Hopefully it turns around soon because they've got a great chance to be competitive, and I'd like to see them compete.
Tatum has completely carried over from what he did in the postseason to this season. He looks like the same animal as he was last year.
Right now, there's a lot of people saying he's the front runner for the most improved player, and I think we see why. But let's go ahead and move on. We have a couple more things to get to. It was a crazy, wild night in Chicago. The Chicago Bulls taking on the Golden State Warriors. Klay Thompson made NBA history with 14 made three-pointers in one game, finished with 52 points, and he took the record from his own teammate, Steph Curry, who is now second with the most threes in the game at 13. What did you guys think of that?
That was an insane game. 92-50 at the half.
92 points in one half. The first half, that's insane.
Well, he hit, he hit almost, he was 4 for 4 in the first quarter, Thompson was. And then I think he finished 14 for 18. I think he only missed 3 or 4. So that being said, he was just shooting the lights out in the United Center.
Well, and I think the thing that impressed me the most was he did all this in less than 30 minutes.
Yeah.
27 minutes and change, he scored this many points. And we can see he's getting wide open shots because of all the talent that they have on this squad. When you have to send guys at Steph and KD, Draymond, can't forget about Iguodala, even Sean Livingston at times can pose a threat. That leaves Clay wide open, even though he was hitting shots in guys' faces. Let's be honest. I think that's what I took
Who
away
was the
from
last
the
time he
most.
shot straight over the top of? Was it Levine? Hey, he shot. That was the most impressive shot I've seen this year.
Shot
Straight
like it
over
was
the
wide
top
open.
of him.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
All right, Cale, and we got to finish up here with your Indiana Pacers. Miles Turner, is he the guy? Is he the number 2 in Indiana right now? Right now, through 7 games, he's averaging 12 points, 6 rebounds, 1 assist, and 2 blocks. On par almost exactly with his career averages in the first 2 years he's been in the NBA. What do you got?
Miles Turner's not the number 2 right now. Still a lot of time left. One played 7 games. The number 2 guy right now for me is going to go to Tyreek Evans. That guy coming off of the bench, replacing Victor Oladipo, giving him a break. Somebody that Nate McMillan in Indianapolis can finally rely on to give him some quality minutes. That guy's insane. He's shooting the lights out. He did have to sit out Saturday against the Cavs because he was late to practice on Friday morning. But Tyreek Evans right now is the number 2. Miles Turner on the other hand, that dude's got to figure it out. We were talking about it earlier today. 12 points, 6 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 blocks through 7. That's not what we want to see out of a guy who just got paid $70 million. Miles Turner is also, he's like 7 foot, I think.
7'1", I believe.
7'1". That being said, he should, just like Clint Capella, but he's stronger. He should be able just to pick boards, put up, second chance points, second chance rebounds all day. I don't get it. He's got to turn it around after this contract's up. If he doesn't, which Indiana's got faith in him, and I do too, he's just got to turn it around a little bit. Like we said earlier, this is his 3rd season in the league. He's just got to develop, and it's just such a slow process developing him.
You talked about this off air, and I know that I told you we were going to talk about this because I added it to the show notes at the last minute. But you mentioned Domantas Sabonis and how well he's been playing this season. Does that pose a threat to Miles Turner in his starting position?
As of right now, it does. Sabonis is not near as physically conditioned, in my opinion, as Turner is. Turner's put a lot of work in his body this offseason, and it shows because he can play the whole game. Sabonis coming off is physical. He's going to give you offensive boards. He's going to give you defensive boards. He's going to give you steals, blocks, assists, points off the pick and roll, which him and Evans right now have got perfected. Sabonis right now is the number 1 big man in Indianapolis, and I have no problem saying that.
And shout out to Bojan Bogdanovic. I saw that 30-point game he had the other day.
He's just going to do what he does best. He's just like Joe Ingles, in my opinion. He can shoot from anywhere on the court, especially them corner threes.
And he's been doing it for a while, too. Tyson, anything to add?
Nope. I think you guys are nailing it right now.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to the last topic then. We got to talk about the NHL. Cale, I'm going to hand it over to you in a second, but I got to talk about Austin Matthews and his injury. He's out the next 4 weeks with a shoulder issue. I wrote in the notes that I might cry because when I saw this happen and read the report, that's how I felt at the time. These guys were favorites the Maple Leafs were the favorites, according to Vegas, to win the cup this year.
Still are favorites by a long shot.
And we'll see because that loss to Calgary 3-1.
You're going to lose games.
That really hit hard for me because that's how I envision these next 4 weeks going. But we'll see. I understand we still have Tavares, and he's a stud. He's going to have to step up, and I'm really excited to see how Riley accepts his larger role with this team moving forward. But Cale, go ahead and take it away, man.
I'm going to go back on that Matthews injury. The one thing I will say, it is his left shoulder and not his right. He did have problems with his right shoulder last year, which made him miss 6 weeks, I believe, last season. Maybe it was 4, but I believe it was 6. 4 to 6, we'll just go there. Austin Matthews, though, it bothers me because I'm not going to be able to see him play a full 82-game season again. That just bothers me.
Since he's been in the league.
I'm going to put it this way. Sidney Kid Crosby, he played 6 82-game seasons in a row. If he wants to be Austin or Sidney Crosby's stature and respect and earn mine, although he has it, Austin Matthews has got the stuff. I just want to see him play a full season. I will say this, a lot of people saying that hit that he took the other night was dirty. That was the most clean hockey hit I've ever seen in my entire life. The social media, specifically the Twitter machine, has got these dirty hits, foul hits, and hockey hits confused. There's been a few of them that guys have received suspensions for this year that are clean hockey hits.
Well, and one thing that I would say about that is being a Leafs fan, I'll be the first one to tell you that I saw nothing wrong with it. It was a clean play.
Didn't leave his feet, didn't lower his head, didn't use his stick. He just shoulder checked him.
As much as I hate to say it, it was one of the cleanest plays that you could do. That if you go up to hit someone like that,
it's just a weird angle that Matthews got hit at. So 4 weeks though, you guys should be happy. 4 weeks is not much, especially and it's early. You still got Tavares.
That's the important thing.
You still got Tavares. You still got Kasperi Kapanen. You still got Riley. You guys still got all these weapons on the bench that you're not going to have to worry about. I'm going to move on, though. The L.A. Kings, a team that I thought was going to be a little better than what they were, their head coach, John Stevens, excuse me, I forgot his name, I blanked. John Stevens is going to be on the hot seat after a 3-7-1 start. I figured this was going to be the exact opposite record with a 7-3-1. Anze Kopitar, struggling.
It's a little surprising.
Jonathan Quick, struggling. He's hurt. But that being said, I want to take on something. Have you guys noticed that the average age have you guys seen these guys, these players in the hockey or in the NHL league right now?
Young guys.
Young. The average age of the NHL on hand is 27.2. So keep in mind, you got guys that are ranging from 17 to 35.
And then you got guys like the Panthers goaltender Luongo.
Robbie Luongo, who's almost 40.
Yeah, who's definitely up in that average a little bit.
So this season,
several of them.
Exactly. This season, the Colorado Avalanche are the youngest team on hand at 25 years of age average. Moving on to that, you go all the way down. The LA Kings, third oldest in the league at 28.3 years of age. That is why they're struggling so much. The NHL has come to such a young league. It's turned into the NBA. It's such a young league, a young, power, star-studded, stud-driven league.
And I'm glad you said that because that's the comparison that I was about to make when you finished up with your statement there.
I just love how young it is, and they're going to figure out these teams like the Blackhawks. Unless there's two guys on that team, I'm going to disclude being Patty Kane and Jonathan Taves. But yeah, no, the NHL is just moving younger and younger. Another thing I want to talk about is Charlie McAvoy, another young gun for the Boston Bruins. This kid, if you have not watched him play, look up his highlight tape from his first 2 years. He's been placed on the IR with another shoulder injury as well. One thing I will say is that these guys aren't near as tough as guys like Jordan Tutu, who just retired, coming from the northernmost northern tip of, I don't know how many times I could say northern tip of Canada, who are just tough. These guys are scrappers back in the day. But these guys, not so much anymore. They're, I won't want to say fairies, but they're not tough. I will say that. Also, the NHL, good news for guys that are big into sports gambling, has now partnered with MGM to allow betting on everything in all arenas. Last year, the Vegas Golden Knights partnered with, I think it was William Hill Sportsbook, to allow betting in the Vegas arena, which is Las Vegas, so it's legal there. But now the NHL has made it legal in every arena, partnering with MGM being the spearhead of that. Also, this is kind of interesting. It's really nuts and ridiculous. I'm not doing stats or 3 stars a day. I'm just kind of going over some information. Sorry about that. I'll get it Friday. They're not going to change the pads or restrictions on the goalie pads. I don't know what the restrictions are, honestly. They can't be so thick. They can't be so thin. I know that because the puck will bounce different. Why is that even an issue? It's worked for the last 10 years.
They came out this year and they changed the padding. They thinned all the padding on the goalies. They said it was too thick, making the puck bounce funny, and they didn't like it. So they cut off about a half an inch off of all the pads on all the goalies to make them significantly slimmer. And I want to say something like at least 75% of the goalies have come out and said this sucks.
You know why it sucks? I'll tell you once you're done.
Well, because they're taking 100-mile-an-hour slap shots.
That's part of it.
They said they can't. I watched a couple of the interviews. They can't hardly practice because they can wear the thicker pads for practice and whatnot, but it doesn't really help you in the game to not wear the same equipment.
Yeah.
So if you want to practice in the thin pads, you're going to take abuse. And I watched an interview, a couple of the older goalies in the league that have been there for 10, 12 years. They're getting abused out there. They come off the ice with black spots all up and down their arms from bruises from taking all these pucks. They say, I used to come off the ice and be completely fine. I'm ready to go the next night. Now I want to come home and I just want to get in an ice bath and just chill for about 8 hours because it hurts so bad. I come off the ice sore every night just from taking these slap shots because these pads suck.
One thing with thinner pads is that puck's going to bounce off a lot more, which is going to make the redirects in the NHL a lot more entertaining. As to thicker pads, it's going to die. It's just going to complete all the absorption. It's going to absorb right into that pad, all the momentum. So the puck's going to die. The goalie can cover. Thinner pads is just going to bounce straight off. So therefore, that's going to open up more chances for redirects.
It's bouncing off your bone.
Absolutely, it's not bouncing off your pads, it's bouncing off bone. So that being said, I understand where the goaltenders are coming from, but for the sport of hockey itself, trying to integrate it, make it more mainstream, they got to make it more entertaining. If that's what it's going to take, goaltenders, they're tough. They're just a different breed of guys. Goaltenders are.
Sure enough.
This is like the NHL's implementation of like the shot clock back in the 70s.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
essentially.
All
At
right.
the end of those interviews, all those goalies did come out and say, "Whatever, we'll deal with it. We'll
That's just
we'll
how-
adjust."
That's
That's
just
how they
goaltenders
are.
They're just tendies. They're
Yeah.
just a different.
Well, you
breed.
got to be a tough SOB to be a goaltender to begin with.
Oh, yeah.
So, one last thing before we close out today's episode. Report from Bleacher Report: Kyle Long, Chicago Bears offensive lineman, is out at least 6 weeks with a broken bone in his foot. I'm not sure what's going on. I know he got injured in that game
Carted
against the
off.
Jets, but 6 weeks now, and the Bears are going to have to fill that spot. Don't think it should be an issue versus Buffalo, but once we get into the second half of the schedule, definitely is concerning. But that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for us today. If you like what you heard, make sure that you hit that red subscribe button down below. Also, don't be afraid to leave us a comment, like, rating, whatever you feel like. All are welcome. Let's just go ahead and hit that bell icon next to us so you guys don't miss a beat and forget me acting like an idiot. Well, with that said, my name's Gavin Campbell. That was Tyson Snyder, Cale Fleming, and we will see you guys next time.
Peace.
Based upon the view, you can't have too much trouble. So why can't we do it? Everybody's doing it. Let's strike the fireworks, stand back and enjoy it. Oh, bomb to